Okay, so we're diving into some pretty intense stuff today. We're talking about David, but forget the kind of Sunday school version of David and Goliath.
Right.
We're going way deeper.
Much deeper.
And we've got this source that's really amazing because it goes into like the whole arc of David's life.
Yeah.
And it's not just like hero to, you know, conquering hero.
No.
There's some seriously complex stuff in here.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, so often these huge historical figures, uh, they get kind of flattened out,
Oh, yeah, totally.
like simplified, even airbrushed almost.
Yeah, yeah.
But this material, it doesn't shy away from anything.
It does not.
It shows us all of it, the good, the bad, the ugly.
Yeah,
It lays out this incredible journey
totally.
from, what starts out as this seemingly peaceful shepherd to this king
Yeah.
who, I mean, wow, his reign has these like incredible highs,
Oh, yeah.
but also some seriously dark moments.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's what makes it so
That's
fascinating.
a wild ride.
It is.
That's what we're going to do in this Deuce Dive.
Unpack all these twists and turns.
Absolutely.
Because it's not just about like, okay, David the shepherd, then David the warrior, then David the king.
Right.
It's about how those different parts of him,
Yeah.
like how they connect.
The transformations.
Yeah, and sometimes clash. And I think that's going to really change how people see this guy.
I agree.
So let's start right at the beginning. David the poet,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, when you picture him like young David,
Mm-hmm.
what do you see?
I mean, the image that immediately comes to mind is, out in the fields, youngest brother,
Oh, yeah.
looking after the sheep, maybe playing his harp, composing, those songs.
Those beautiful songs.
Yeah, the Psalms.
Yeah, you get this sense of like, he's gentle,
Mhm.
he's thoughtful,
Yeah, definitely.
almost spiritual,
Very connected to nature.
Yeah, connected to nature, to his faith.
And that sets up a certain expectation, right?
Totally.
You think, okay, here's this sensitive soul, this artist.
Right. And that's what makes his later actions all the more surprising.
But here's the thing that I think is so cool about this source.
But
Even in those early shepherd days,
yeah.
there are these little details that the source throws in
Okay.
that kind of hint that there's more to him than meets the eye.
Like what?
Well, it mentions him taking on lions and bears.
Oh, yeah, to protect his flock.
Yeah, to protect his flock. And I mean, just think about that for a second.
It's not your average sheepdog situation.
No, that's not just like shooing away a stray dog or something.
Right.
That takes some serious guts.
Absolutely.
Some serious skill.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, a bit of a killer instinct.
Right.
You don't take on a lion unless you're willing to,
Finish the job.
yeah, to do what you got to do. And it's like, that's our first little peek.
Behind the curtain.
Yeah, behind the curtain.
At the complexity of his character.
Yeah, so maybe the poet isn't just all soft edges.
Right. From the beginning, there's a hint of steel there.
Totally.
Yeah.
Okay, so then we jump ahead. We're on the battlefield with Goliath.
All right.
Now, David's not there as like a seasoned warrior or anything.
It's just a kid.
He's basically running errands for his brothers.
Bringing supplies.
Yeah, bringing supplies, and then he hears Goliath.
This massive giant of a warrior.
He's just this huge dude.
And he's like bellowing out these insults,
oh, yeah, totally.
mocking the entire Israelite army.
And the whole army is terrified.
I mean, petrified.
These are like trained soldiers,
Right.
and they're cowering from this one guy.
They're completely paralyzed by fear.
And that's what makes David's reaction so interesting.
Yeah,
Because the text really emphasizes that he doesn't feel fear.
right.
It's not his main emotion.
So what is it?
It's this like righteous anger,
Yeah.
like he's personally offended.
Yeah, it's not just about defending his people.
Right.
It's like Goliath has violated something sacred.
Yeah, like it's a direct insult
Yeah.
that has to be answered.
And his confidence in that moment is just remarkable.
Oh, yeah.
This young shepherd boy,
Walks right up to the king,
Sullivan King.
whose entire army is shaking in their boots.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'll take him.
I'll fight him.
And the reason he gives is so interesting.
What's that?
It's not just like, oh, God's on my side.
Right,
It's that he's fought lions and bears.
right. He brings up his track record.
Yeah, he's like, look, I've handled predators before.
Like this is just another Tuesday for him.
Yeah, exactly. And it's almost like he's sizing Goliath up and thinking,
Okay.
not that impressive.
Yeah, like you're big, but so was that bear.
Right, and I took care of that.
So he's not just relying on faith.
It's this practical confidence.
Yeah, like I have the skill
I've done this before.
to do this again. And it's such a shift from what you'd expect from a kid.
Totally. And what strikes you about this moment?
I think it's that contrast
Yeah,
between how a young boy is supposed to react.
right, all fear and trembling.
Yeah. And how David just assesses the situation
Yeah.
so calmly.
Like a seasoned professional.
Yeah, okay, so then we've got this face-off.
Goliath is this mountain of a man.
Decked out in armor.
Yeah, full battle gear.
And he's mocking David.
Oh, yeah, of course.
This little kid with a stick, basically.
But David, he refuses Saul's armor and sword.
Which is interesting.
And it's not because they don't fit.
Right, it's not that he can't handle them.
Yeah, he's not like, oh, I've never worn armor before.
Right.
It's that he doesn't need them.
Yeah.
He's got his sling.
And 5 smooth stones.
And as everyone knows, he only ends up using one.
Right, and that choice of weapon is so telling.
Oh, yeah.
It's not this fancy sword or spear.
No.
It's a tool he's used his whole life.
Out in the fields with the sheep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It represents his background, his upbringing.
Yeah, and it takes a different kind of skill.
It's not about brute strength.
No.
It's about precision accuracy.
Yeah, hitting that one perfect spot.
And the fact that he takes 5 stones but only needs 1.
It shows this amazing confidence.
Right. He knows he can do it.
It's almost like he sees the outcome already.
Okay, so the fight itself.
It's almost like something out of a movie.
It's legendary.
You've got this giant of a man.
This behemoth in shining armor.
And this tiny kid with his slingshot.
It's the ultimate underdog story.
But David's so
And
calm.
in the face of this, raging giant.
Yeah, Goliath is screaming and taunting.
Trying to intimidate him.
But David just...
I pose.
Yeah, he's got this focus.
And then it's bam.
One shot.
Perfectly placed.
Hits Goliath right in the forehead.
And the giant falls.
Down he goes. But that's not where the story ends.
No, this is where things get really interesting.
Because David doesn't just celebrate from afar.
Yeah.
He runs right up to Goliath.
Takes Goliath's own sword.
This massive sword
Yeah.
decapitates him.
It's brutal.
Yeah, it's not just like, oh, I won.
No, it's a statement.
Yeah, it's this decisive act.
It's like the poet becoming the executioner.
Right, in that moment.
Yeah, it's a turning point.
Totally.
Because after Goliath,
David's not just the kid who got lucky.
no,
He's a warrior.
a proven warrior.
And people start to fear him.
Right. He's not just the shepherd anymore.
Yeah, he becomes Saul's best general.
The most successful general.
Leading the army to victory after victory.
There's that famous saying,
Oh, yeah.
Saul has slain his thousands and David his tens of thousands.
Yeah, it's like the gentle shepherd is gone.
Replaced by this military leader.
Yeah, this force to be reckoned with.
And if we think about the larger narrative, all of this military success, it actually fuels Saul's jealousy.
Oh, yeah, that's a whole other thing.
And we see a different side of David here.
You mean?
Well, he's not just running away from Saul's paranoia.
Right.
He's actively working against him.
Yeah, he's not just hiding.
No, he's gathering followers.
Building his own power base.
Exactly. And the text suggests he's using some pretty ruthless tactics.
Really?
Yeah, he's not afraid to get his hands dirty.
Wow. So it's a calculated climb to power.
It's not just self-defense.
Yeah.
It's ambition.
Okay, so then he becomes king.
Right.
And it's like that same drive for power. It just keeps going.
Maybe even escalates.
Yeah, and the story of Bathsheba is like a perfect example. He sees her.
He desires her.
And he acts on that desire.
Without any regard for the fact that she's married.
To Uriah.
One of his most loyal soldiers.
And I think that shows something really important about power.
What's that?
Like absolute power, it can really corrupt people.
It's the classic saying.
Right, and here David's not the shepherd boy anymore.
No.
He's the king.
He's at the top.
And he starts to believe that his desires...
They're more important than anyone else's?
Yeah, and the cover-up
Oh, man.
is just as bad.
It's cold-blooded.
He brings Uriah back from battle,
Yeah.
hoping that he'll sleep with Bathsheba.
To hide the pregnancy.
And when that doesn't work,
He has Uriah killed.
it's just awful.
It's a betrayal of the worst kind.
I mean, how do you reconcile that?
With the image of the psalm-writing shepherd.
Yeah, exactly.
It's impossible.
It's like he's two different people.
I think that's the point.
What do you mean?
This source is forcing us to confront
Yeah.
the contradictions within David.
Okay.
That even someone who seems so devout can do terrible things.
Especially when they have so much power.
Right. Unchecked power can corrupt anyone.
Absolutely. And it's not just in the realm of war and politics that we see this intensity.
Right.
The text then goes into his love life.
Okay. Interesting.
And it suggests that he pursued love with that same kind of passion.
With that same intensity.
Yeah, but it also led to some really complicated situations.
Okay, so let's talk about Michal.
Saul's daughter.
Yeah. Their relationship starts in this really unusual way.
With that crazy dowry demand.
The Philistine foreskins.
Yeah, it's pretty gruesome.
It's a bizarre custom.
But what's fascinating is how it shows that their whole relationship...
It's tied up in the violence of the time.
Yeah, it's not just like, oh, this romantic tradition.
Right. It's a power play by Saul.
Yeah, he's basically trying to get David killed.
Right. It's a test he probably doesn't expect David to survive.
But despite that,
Michelle falls for him.
she really loves him.
Yeah.
And she ends up saving his life.
Right. She helps him escape.
Tricks her own father.
It's incredibly brave.
Yeah, she risks everything for David.
It's true love.
But then, of course,
It all falls apart.
because Saul gives Michal to another man.
Paltail.
Yeah. And years later, when David is king,
Yeah.
he demands Michal back
And it seems like that was more about politics.
than actual love.
Yeah. He wants to solidify his claim to the throne.
Right. He's using her.
And there's even this little detail about Paltail being heartbroken.
Oh,
When
yeah.
they're separated.
Shows the human cost.
Of all this political maneuvering.
Totally. So the reunion between David and Michal.
That's not exactly a happy ending.
No, it's kind of sad, actually.
Yeah. Michal has lived her own life.
She's not the same girl.
And she might even resent David.
For how he used her.
And when she criticizes him,
For dancing during the procession of the Ark.
David humiliates her. Yeah. It's a bitter end to their relationship.
Yeah, it really shows how power
And ambition.
can damage even the strongest love.
Okay, so then there's Abigail,
And this is such a different story.
Yeah.
It starts with her husband, Nabal.
who's kind of a jerk.
He insults David.
Yeah, really bad law.
And David is furious.
He's about to attack.
Yeah, he's ready to unleash his whole army on Nabal.
But then Abigail steps in.
She's amazing.
She's so smart.
She goes to David,
Humbles herself before him.
brings him gifts.
And talks him down from the ledge.
Yeah, she basically prevents a massacre.
Through sheer diplomacy.
And David is completely blown away by her.
It's not just her beauty.
No, he's impressed by her intelligence.
He praises her wisdom.
He's like, you saved me from making a huge mistake.
It's a meeting of minds.
Yeah, their relationship is built on respect.
On understanding.
Which is so different from what we saw with Michal.
Absolutely.
And then, of course, Nabal died.
Conveniently.
Yeah, and David marries Abigail.
And this time it feels genuine.
Yeah, he genuinely admires her.
Okay, so then we come back to Bathsheba.
Mm-hmm. But this time we're focusing on their relationship.
After the whole Uriah situation.
Yeah, because it doesn't end there.
No, their story continues.
Even though it started with this terrible act,
Yeah.
Bathsheba becomes a really important part of David's life,
She bears him Solomon.
who eventually becomes king,
And the text suggests that she had a lot of influence.
on making that happen.
Yeah, she was a powerful figure.
So it's this complicated relationship.
But that goes way beyond that initial encounter.
Yeah, okay, so on top of all that, David also takes multiple other wives and concubines.
Right, which was common for kings back then.
Yeah, it was a way to show power.
To forge alliances.
And sometimes, yeah, just for pleasure.
But people creates this really chaotic family dynamic.
Oh, yeah.
Lots of rivalry between the sons.
Yeah, jealousy.
We see the consequences of that.
In the story of Amnon and Tamar.
Yeah, Amnon assaults his half-sister Tamar.
It's awful.
And then Absalom rebels against David.
It's like all this internal turmoil.
Stems from David's unchecked desires.
And the complexities of having so many wives and children.
Exactly.
So what we're left with is this incredibly complex picture of David.
Yeah.
He's the poet, the warrior, the king, the lover.
He's all of these things.
But he's also capable of terrible things.
He can be ruthless and violent.
He makes some pretty bad decisions.
Driven by his desires.
And by his ambition.
He's full of contradictions.
But I think that's what makes him so human.
Yeah.
And his love life.
It reflects that complexity.
It's full of passion and heartbreak.
Loyalty and betrayal.
He's constantly seeking love.
But also wielding power.
And sometimes those two things clash.
It's a fascinating journey.
From the shepherd to the king.
It really makes you think.
About how much a person can change.
And about the corrupting influence of power.
So the big question, I think, is,
Yeah.
given everything that happened to David, all the temptations,
Yeah.
was this transformation inevitable?
Could he have stayed the gentle shepherd?
Or was he always destined to become this powerful king?
With all the baggage that comes with it.
Yeah, that's something I want our listeners to really consider.
I agree.
Think back to that image of young David out in the fields.
With his sheep and his harp.
And then compare that to the king he becomes.
Burdened by his choices.
Yeah, what does that tell us about human nature?
About the potential for both good and bad within us all.
It's a lot to think about.
It is.
But that's what makes this deep dive so worthwhile.
I think so too.
Thanks for joining us, everyone.
We'll see you next time.